Sir, if you could tell us briefly a brief history of who were our first tourists, when did Bhutan officially first open to tourism?
Before that, maybe I like to share that Department of Tourism was started in 1971. In fact, on 1st December 1971, Department of Tourism was established, and then for next 3 years till 1974, which was the year of the coronation of our fourth Duge Shiva. That was the year when we received the first tourists. Nice. Now, why from 1971 till 74? Because I think we had to take that time to prepare ourselves. For instance, we didn't have even a kind of a basic infrastructure such as hotels. So therefore, some new hotels, accommodations were put in place. Maybe we had to arrange some transport. So basically, Bhutan really took a long time, actually very good time, to prepare ourselves properly, so that when we get the first tourists, we are adequately prepared. So that was the preparatory time. And just to answer your question now, the first tourist that came to Bhutan was actually for 7 days, and it was from 3rd October 1974. And they consisted of about 14 members. Of course, the tour was arranged by a tour company based in America, and there were 14, and of 14, 8 were Americans, and 5 were Spanish, and 1 was Argentina. And now, that being the first group of tourists, what happened is, then the first director of tourism department, who was later awarded a Red Scarf also from His Majesty, and therefore Dashu Setendoji, he was the first tourism director, and he went all the way down to Phensiling Gate, and he received the first group of tourists in Phensiling Gate. He offered khadar to the team leader and all to the team members, and then they were brought to the Karapandi, and that was the hotel where they were put it up. And then from there, the next day, they traveled to Paro, actually, not to Thimphu. From Phensiling, by bus, they traveled to Paro, because Paro, again, there was the Olathang Hotel. I think that was very new those days. And one interesting thing is, they had their lunch on their travel from Phensiling to Paro. They had their lunch at Chapcha, called Zimla, which is supposed to be a viewpoint, the highest kind of point between Phensiling and Thimphu Highway. It's just behind, after you cross the Chapcha proper. There they had lunch, and that lunch was actually brought all the way from Thimphu. So they had to cater the lunch from Thimphu. So that I thought was quite interesting. The director of tourism going to receive, and then he was accompanied, and I think he accompanied till they departed. So, and one interesting thing they said was, they felt that even then, it was 50 years ago, even then they were saying what they liked most about Bhutan, what attracted them most about Bhutan was the pristine, the quietness, the peaceful nature situation of our country. By then they were already saying they could get away from their crazy world, say. So which is, though it was 50 years ago, still then things were already becoming quite crowded, quite noisy in the other parts of the world from where they were coming. So I thought that was very interesting, because even today, I think that is one of the main attractions why tourists come to Bhutan. Bhutan is still that pristine, supposed to be clean and peaceful country.
How did this high value, low volume come about? How was this policy introduced?
This policy of high value, low volume, this came as a gift from Golden Throne, from Duge Shiva. In the early 70s, when we opened up tourism, His Majesty the Fourth Dugyalpo was at the helm, and we hear that we are being told, our senior citizens, they tell us that in the early 70s, when we were opening up the tourism, as I was saying earlier, the first tourists, they already were feeling totally attracted or different in Bhutan, is because Bhutan seems to be less crowded, and peaceful, and their world seems to be already crowded. So therefore, while rest of the world, they were already having a lot of tourists, a lot of activities happening around tourists, and Bhutan was just starting, and it would have been quite actually natural or okay to also to have kind of an open door policy. That means any number of tourists they want to come, they should come. I mean, we will not have any regulations. That could have been also a choice, you know. And in fact, some of the advisors, or you know, must have also advised that, it seems, apparently. But what happened is our Duge Shiba, he was very determined, saying that no, for Bhutan, especially looking into the future, for Bhutan, the best policy, the decision that should be taken is that we follow this very cautious approach to tourism. Basically, the term itself, high value, low volume, was coined by Duge Shiba. So since then, we have been very luckily or fortunately following this policy. So for last 50 years, this policy has stood the test of time. And we, in fact, these days, looking back after 50 years, we are already seeing this is a kind of a golden tourism policy. And in fact, because of the COVID, even there are many other destinations in the world, they are already looking up to our policy. Those destinations, those other countries, wherein, in fact, Bhutan could be the only country, even as of today, that has this kind of a policy, and accordingly, the tourism practice is such a unique, and it is becoming even more relevant.
Bhutan's tourism policy, high value, low volume, what does it mean in simple words for our viewers?
If we define our policy, tourism policy, which got approved this year in last January, is defined very well, very clearly what is meant by high value, low volume. But in a simple term, what we mean is, for the layman, is basically a tourist coming to Bhutan should feel, he or she should feel valued. He or she should feel that, okay, my coming to Bhutan, it is such a valuable experience. The second part of the value is, to come to Bhutan, it is not so easy. I mean, not anyone can come to Bhutan. So therefore, there has to be a minimum kind of a payment that you have to make. So that is also the second part of the value, high value. But more importantly, it is the value, it is the experience, the great experience, the exclusive experience that our tourists, our guests gets in Bhutan. So that is the high value.
When it comes to low volume, I think most common people, we think it's number of tourists. So when you say low volume, what is the lowest and what is the highest number of tourists we can have?
Yeah, so low volume, as per the policy, we are saying the volume means basically the number of tourists that Bhutan can receive, Bhutan can host, would be guided by the carrying capacity of our infrastructure, of our service, of our, so many other factors. So therefore, there is no fixed kind of a number. And also, even if you have a fixed number for one particular year, this can change the following year. It can go down, it can go up. So depending upon the carrying capacity. So that is the first thing that I like to clarify. Second, I just like to share, in terms of the number, how we have come since the first group of tourists. Like in 1974 was the first group of tourists that we received, and as per the record, it says in 1974 we have received around 287 in total. Then by 1980s, it has reached around 2,000 to 3,000 only, 1980s, and by 1990s it has reached to around 10,000. And by 2000, it has reached almost like 50,000. And then more recently, in 2019, as you will know, we have already received around 315,000. So number has been gradually rising. But now going forward, now as of today, since last year, March, we don't have even a single tourist. Of course, technically, I'm wrong. We have one tourist here as of today, as everybody knows. We have one tourist. So for me, what I'm thinking is now, whether it is 2020 this year, or 2021 or next year, when we restart, it will be, to me, it will be almost like same like in 1970s. So basically, we will be now taken back to the early 1970s when we are opening up to a tourism. Even the global tourism organization like UNWTO and others, they also forecast in a similar trend. The restart of tourism will be gradual and slow. It will be not suddenly, because in 2019 we had 300,000, 300 plus thousand. Now doesn't mean that in 2021 when we reopen we will have another 300,000. I don't think so. It will be gradual process. Maybe we will have 50,000 at the most, or maybe even less than that. So it will be a gradual process la. So under badalu number, the low volume should not be really a concern. It will keep on rising, and if time comes when the number is really large, that we are not able to give them high value services, then the number has to be again regulated.
You have stated in one of your interviews that this policy will continue to be relevant for all times to come. If you could stress more on this.
Now, what I mean by that is Bhutan's tourism policy of high value, low volume is for eternity. In other words, why I'm saying this is, for last 50 years it has been very relevant, and we are saying going forward also is going to be all time relevant. Now, basically what I mean by that is, the policy objective of high value, low volume, which I have already tried to explain, is something that we are not going to catch. We can never catch this. It is a target that we are going to chase, and we are going to chase it for all times to come. Now, if I try to explain a little bit more, what we mean is, now basically the high value experience, that there is no limit actually. The value or the degree or the level of the exclusiveness that a guest would feel, the value, that will continue to grow. Maybe, okay, let's say for next 5 years, let's say it is 100% our target. But once we have reached 100%, that is not the end. Then maybe it will go to 200%, so 300%. So this is what we are saying. So therefore, there will never come a time, I believe actually, personally I believe, there will never come a time wherein we can say now Bhutan has reached or achieve our policy objective of high value, low volume. That will never come a time, because it will be always the target will be always will be raised higher and higher.
As a Bhutanese, we take pride in this golden policy of high value, low volume. But before the pandemic, I think most of us, it was also highlighted in media. We had huge influx of tourists, including international and regional. We had so many tourists in the country. So it's kind of irony also when we state low volume. So now after the pandemic, I believe there are new policies, and I think in one of your interviews you have also mentioned that Bhutan is the silver lining of tourism sector. So it seems like we have lessons learned from the pandemic as well. So if you could stress more on this as well.
COVID-19 globally and also in our country, it is a bad thing that is happening, in general, especially economy, social, community-wise, everything. I think it is something that we didn't want, but it just happened. It's something, but if you look it from a different perspective, especially from tourism sector in Bhutan, sometimes we also like to say is a blessing in disguise. Well, it has its own bad things, but for tourism we say is blessing in disguise, mainly because just before COVID in 2019, as you have rightly said, the number was really quite high. I mean 315,000. And while we definitely don't want to label this as a mass tourism or over tourism, but some warnings, we were already getting that pressure. Our tourist sites, like for example Taksang, Dojola, and some other sites, it was already getting crowded, overcrowded, but not in that formal definition of over tourism. That has not happened definitely, but the warning was already coming. So meanwhile, the government was already trying to take some remedial measures. So we had some, as I said, the policy was also started to draft a policy, and by last year we got this approved. Similarly, some new regulations like levying of SDF, or in other words, mainstreaming of tourists to one tourist system has also started, which we mean is, pre-COVID we used to have two types of tourists, regional and international. But going forward, as per this policy, slowly we are going to have just one type of tourists. And in fact, as per the policy, we are hoping to achieve that policy target by 2030. So by 2030, what we are saying is, if you can, we will try to achieve before that, but at least by 2030, any tourists coming to Bhutan, regardless of their nationalities, from which part of the world they might come, they will be treated as same, and they will be paying the same thing, they will be getting the same treatment. And as of now, we know it is not the case, and in fact, we are being criticized. Bhutan is being criticized, our tourism policy is being criticized, being discriminatory, and which is actually not. But then, because of our this dual system, we feel that one group of tourists is not taken care by our system here, while the other group of tourists is given a VIP treatment. Now, this is because of some regulatory practices, and which now we are trying to address, so that everyone coming to Bhutan will be treated the same, we will be giving them the same treatment.
As a journalist, I have so many outsiders who ask me that is it expensive to visit Bhutan, especially when we say it's high value, low volume. Correct me if I'm wrong, is Bhutan striving to be or already is an expensive tourist destination?
If we talk in terms of monetary, I feel it's not, because as of now, we have a tariff system guided by this tourism policy of high value, low volume. As of now, we have two rates. One for the summer, season, other off season. So the rates are, as of today, 200 and 250 depending upon the season. So USD per person per day. Now this tariff, to whether it's 200 or 250, take care of your food, your accommodation, your transport, your guide, your visit to sites. In fact, everything except for your out-of-pocket expenses, wherein you may like to buy some souvenirs or some other expenses. Otherwise, your food, accommodation, transport, everything is taken care by this 200 or 250, and at a 3-star, minimum of 3-star standard. So if you go by this, definitely it is not expensive, because you know that even if you travel in any other country, just for a okay type of accommodation, you will be paying a minimum of not less than $50-60 just for an accommodation room. Then on top of that, your transport, your food, everything, definitely it will exceed $200. So therefore, if you talk about this payment, it is definitely not, I would say. But in general, as you say, people try to say it's expensive, and I feel the reason is because of the miscommunication, because they feel that okay. But those tourists who have visited Bhutan, they realize this, and then they go back. Then they realize, okay, definitely it's not expensive. But those tourists who have not been to Bhutan, but they hear, okay, if you go to Bhutan, you have to pay in advance $200 or $250. Then I think the proper communication is not there, and they take that as a visa fee. Okay, $200 or $250 is just for visa fee. Like rest of the countries, in other countries, the visa fees will be, of course, definitely it will be not 200 or 250. So if it is for visa fee, definitely expensive. So therefore, it is in the communication part. Now we are trying to address this, and I feel last couple of years we have been doing this, and now I think most people know about this, because visa fee is separate. Just again want to share, on top of this 200 or 250, depending on the season, each tourist has to pay for one time USD 40 as a visa fee. So that's separate, and which is more or less at par with the visa fees in other countries also. So therefore, I feel Bhutan is definitely not an expensive country in terms of monetary, but something that we can consider. We can be an expensive country. Now, this 200 or 250 tariff has been there for last 10 years. Now, maybe it is time to revise. Maybe we need to upgrade this. So there is a possibility of increasing further possibility, but when we increase, of course, then the services also have to be increased. So our vision is to make Bhutan one of the most exclusive destination in the world. So when that is our target, then definitely the tariff also has to increase, because then accordingly other services also needs to be put in place, and for that we need to pay.
In general, how favorable is this high value, low volume policy for those working in tourism sector, especially those who are just starting out and who are not established and not high end?
Very interesting question, but at the same time my answer will be quite straightforward. I don't know how this will convince you. To me, I believe any policy that a country or a government adopts should be beneficial to majority of population. Maybe an exception, maybe few exception, it may not be favorable to them, but mostly it should be favorable. So therefore, my belief is this policy, even to this new or upcoming people joining the tourism sector, should be beneficial. This would be my say. And also earlier also we said this is a tourism policy that is been relevant, time tested for last 50 years, and it is going to go for all times to come. I mean, I've been saying this. So in view of that, definitely it is going to be favorable to everyone.
I think most of our viewers in Bhutan and even those who are watching from abroad would like to know that when will Bhutan officially open to tourism and what would be the protocols to follow?
As far as protocols to be followed, when we reopen, it will be more or less same, I think, with all other destinations. We have already come up with a kind of a final draft, SOPs for our service providers, the COVID protocols, so based on WHO and our Ministry of Health. So these are more or less ready as far as protocols and standards are concerned. But as far as the opening date is concerned, again, quite similar to other destinations also. It's very difficult. While we also, the rural government, the tourism sector, everyone, also the prospective tourists who wants to come here, they also want Bhutan to be open up as early as possible. But unfortunately, this is something beyond anyone's control actually. Even if you want to, even if things are perfectly all right in Bhutan, is not good enough, because we are in this global village, and what happens in our immediate neighboring country, in our region, and at world at large will also influence what is to be done in Bhutan. So therefore, opening up when? Well, we would like to also do this at the earliest possible, but we are just not able to do it. It would depend on all these factors. And besides, I think at this point in time, I think it has also become very evident globally also, in the global media also, Bhutan has been very careful under the far-sighted visionary leadership of His Majesty the King. We have been focusing, prioritizing on the health aspect, health safety, the COVID-19 containment. How do we manage this? And we have been so successful. We have been almost, looked up to by the whole world in our way we handle our COVID-19. So because of that, as of today, as you and we, speak, we are living quite a, very peaceful and healthy life in our country. And this is all because of that kind of a priority or decision taken by His Majesty and the royal government. So therefore, the priority at this point in time is to keep everyone healthy and safe from COVID-19. So these are some of the priorities. And having said this, my personal expectation or hope is that maybe, if possible, maybe by end of this year, things could open up. If not, at least I'm hoping that the early next spring, which is supposed to be normally the next tourist, the first tourist season of year, maybe by April, May, we could start opening up, say. This is my hope, but as I said, this is nothing official, nothing definite, that is the situation, whether we like it or not.
And as we end our program, my last question would be, if you could tell us in a nutshell, what would be the future of tourism in Bhutan?
Future of tourism is very bright for our country. And it has been the case also in the past. In fact, pre-COVID, while tourism was second to hydropower, we were even thinking maybe tourism should become number one. So while we going post-COVID, while we may not like to pursue tourism to be number one, but it will continue to be important. And the reason why I'm saying is this: COVID-19 has taught us a lesson. Because with COVID-19 coming in, tourism was totally has come to a standstill, and all those people who were just totally depending on tourism, for instance, our tour guides, and some of these big hotels, without tourists, their business is totally going out. So because of that, I feel that we should also try to diversify. Not everyone should rush into tourism, and even those who are already in tourism, they should also try to diversify. In other words, we should not try to put all our eggs in one basket. So this would be my say. Now post COVID, because of the COVID-19, what COVID-19 has taught the whole world is the importance of a personal health and safety. I mean, your personal health. Now because of that, post COVID, even in the travel industry, the travelers are going to go for those destinations wherein things are much safe, where they could get more products on wellness and well-being. So that would be their trend, actually, their travel trend, as forecasted by UNWTO and other tourism research organizations. So coming to Bhutan, we also feel we should take this opportunity, because Bhutan by default is already a destination for wellness and well-being for a number of reasons. One is because we have this unique development philosophy of gross national happiness, which has wellness as its ultimate objective, wellness. Similarly, our tourism policy of high value, low volume is also, the objective is wellness, because we want to offer the best possible high value services to our clients. So therefore that is also wellness. And more importantly, Bhutan in the history used to be known as the land of medicinal herbs, So, and as of today, the traditional medicine is very much active. Like in all districts, wherever we have this modern allopathy hospital, we also have a traditional hospital. So therefore, we can develop all those traditional medicine and other related allied sectors in this wellness and well-being, and Bhutan can become that destination for wellness and well-being. And we are actually seriously thinking and working towards achieving this vision to make Bhutan as an exclusive destination for wellness and well-being.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time and sharing your insight with us.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.